All right, so today we're diving into James Allen, specifically his Byways to Blessedness.
Ooh, this will be good.
We've got a collection of his essays here, and you know Allen, always insightful.
Yeah, his take on happiness is, well, it's not the usual stuff you hear.
Exactly. It's not about winning the lottery or any of that. It's about mastering the small things, day-to-day living, finding contentment there.
He really flips the script on you. He argues happiness isn't external. It's about your internal state, your being.
Cultivated through thought and action, right?
Yeah, like instead of chasing happiness, you build the right mindset right here, right now.
And he doesn't hold back. Like right beginnings, he goes after, of all things, sleeping in.
Oh, yeah. That one always gets me. How you start your day, even when you wake up, has this ripple effect.
It does sound a bit like modern productivity advice, I'll admit.
But with Allen, there's this, deeper layer, almost spiritual.
Yeah, it's not just about squeezing in more hours now.
No, it's tied to the idea that every thought is a beginning itself. Starts a whole chain of consequences. He compares thoughts to seeds.
Ooh, I like that. So like some grow into something great, others not so much.
Exactly. And even hitting snooze, if you really think about it, it's not just the sleep. It's like giving into that inertia, maybe setting yourself up to procrastinate all day.
Today we'd call that habit formation, I guess.
Right. But Allen, way back then, he's already on about mental habits, how tiny choices shape our lives. He even uses this analogy of building a house,
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
like a weak foundation. Doesn't matter how fancy the house looks, it's going to be unstable.
So that foundation for him is more than just our morning routine.
Way more. It's the thoughtfulness, the intention behind everything you do.
Okay, so then he gets to this part. It's where things get kind of counterintuitive. He says real happiness can be found in, wait for it, chores.
It sounds crazy.
Yeah.
But he's challenging us to see the meaning even in mundane tasks. Remember, like he said, the perfection of the whole depends on each part being perfect.
Like the grain of dust is as perfect as a star.
Yeah. It's not about glorifying chores. It's about finding purpose, even artistry, in everything we do. He contrasts these two women. One's poor, tons of kids, but always cheerful.
And the other's rich, comfortable, but just unhappy all the time.
Right. And he asks which one's really facing hardship.
Makes you think, what we think of as hardship, where happiness really is, maybe it's not about the outward stuff.
Our attitude towards it all. That's key.
So not chores as burdens, but like opportunities. For mindfulness, gratitude, even that flow state, when you're really in the rhythm of something.
There you go.
Now, gotta be real for a sec. Some things are actually tough. Can't just think our way out of every problem.
You're right. And Allen has that whole chapter, transcending difficulties. So there's got to be more to it than just positive thinking.
Exactly.
He gets it. Difficulties come from our weakness or ignorance. But they're not punishments. They're chances to grow. What's interesting is how we normally see problems.
We usually avoid them, right? Not lean in.
He says, difficulties show you where your thinking's messed up, forces you to level up.
Like a mental workout. Harder you push, stronger you get.
That's it. He even says you should rejoice when you hit obstacles. Those powers inside you, they're begging to be used to have more scope.
It is a shift in perspective. Instead of problem, it's like, okay, challenge accepted.
Right. He believes we can overcome any difficulty if our mindset is right. So not fear, not doubt, but analysis, figuring out the root cause, creative solutions. He says no matter how tangled things seem, you can always unbind yourself.
That's a powerful reminder. We're not just victims here. We get to choose how we respond, and that decides whether we crumble under pressure or we rise above it.
And that leads us to burden dropping. This is where he really makes you think about what you can actually handle. He says a lot of our burdens, we make them ourselves, through our thoughts, our attachments. Like, imagine a backpack full of rocks.
Okay, I'm seeing where you're going with this, but what kind of rocks are we talking about?
He gives the example of two women, both facing hardship. One, she's burdened by poverty. The other, by all these social obligations.
Same tough situation, but completely different headspace.
One thrives despite it. The other's crushed by her own expectations, anxieties. He's asking, where are we piling on rocks?
Holding on to resentment, anxieties, unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
That's adding weight to the journey.
There it is. This is where it gets personal. You have to look inward. Are your thought patterns, your behaviors, are they serving you?
He even has that story about the theologian, the guy who wished he'd never married so he could focus on his work.
Oh, that's a good one. Allen says, love that goes out looking for praise and can't be found at home, that's not love, that's vanity.
Ooh, that's a burn. It's like he's saying the real test isn't some grand future thing. It's right now, the everyday mess, the people right in front of you.
Exactly.
This burden dropping, it's central to what he's saying, right? Real freedom isn't changing what's happening to you, but how you relate to it.
That change in perspective, that's where you find joy, even in the hard times. Not denying the struggle, but navigating it gracefully with wisdom.
So far, we've got these foundational pieces. Right beginnings, finding joy even in small things, overcoming difficulties, and this burden dropping. But we're just scratching the surface here, right?
Byways to Blessedness is full of these essays, each one giving a unique angle on living a fulfilling life.
I am definitely curious where these byways will lead us next.
All right, so we're back, still on these Byways to Blessedness with James Allen. We've been through a lot, right beginnings, finding the good even in chores. But how does it all add up to that happy ending he talks about?
Well, that's where hidden sacrifices comes in. Alan's saying real happiness means sometimes giving up what you want now for something better, more lasting.
Okay, but what does that even look like? Grand gestures, big sacrifices.
But really, he's talking about everyday stuff. Skipping that extra dessert, not gossiping even when you want to, those little hidden choices.
Because that instant gratification, it doesn't always satisfy in the long run. Yeah, and sometimes taking the harder path, delaying the reward, that's where you find real happiness.
It's like what they say now about delaying gratification, right? People who can do that, they tend to be more successful, happier overall.
Exactly. Alan, way back then, he was on to something fundamental about us humans and this whole happiness thing.
Ahead of his time, for sure. But this sacrifice thing goes deeper, right?
Oh, yeah. It's also about letting go of selfishness, shifting from me to we.
Not just denying yourself, but expanding your sense of self, being connected to something bigger.
Exactly. True joy comes from serving others, contributing to something beyond just yourself.
And that makes me think of his chapter on sympathy. He says it's not enough to just feel sorry for somebody.
Right. True sympathy, true compassion. You got to conquer those same faults within yourself first.
Walk a mile in their shoes kind of thing.
That's it. He's saying you can only truly get it if you've been there too, wrestled with those same demons.
He uses that example, the hardened criminal who's transformed by taking care of this little mouse.
Yeah. It awakens this compassion in him he didn't even know he had. Even the most unexpected things can change you.
True empathy, not from pity, but from that shared understanding of being human. And speaking of understanding, what about his chapter on forgiveness?
This is where Alan really makes you rethink holding grudges.
So more than just letting go of anger.
Way more. He says resentment hurts you more than the other person, like you drinking poison hoping it'll hurt them.
We usually think forgiving is for them, but he's saying it frees us.
He even lists out 5 sufferings of the unforgiving versus the 5 blessings of forgiveness. It's stark. One side, you've got anger, hate, no peace. The other, you let go, you see things with compassion, harmony is restored.
A strong case for choosing forgiveness, not just because it's right, but because it's good for you.
And this letting go of negativity, it ties into seeing no evil, too. Alan says most evil is just ignorance.
So not judging people, but trying to understand where they're coming from.
That's the heart of it. He uses the Christian and the atheist, each thinking the other's totally wrong. But Alan says they're both acting on what they understand right now.
Everyone's got a different view. Judging just causes more separation, right?
He's not saying bad actions are okay, but that judging rarely fixes things. See the ignorance behind it, respond with understanding.
Tough, especially now when things are so divided. But it is a call to rise above all that.
See the good in everyone.
Recognizing our shared humanity, even when we totally disagree. Which brings us to 2 chapters that I think our learner listeners will love. Silentness and solitude.
Oh yeah, these are interesting. Going against the grain in a world that's all noise all the time.
In Silentness, he talks about a bulldog. Strong, silent type, compared to a noisy, yappy dog, all bark, no bite.
And think about it now, so many distractions.
Yeah.
Being able to quiet your mind, that's valuable.
He says the truly silent person, they've mastered their thoughts, their feelings. They aren't swayed by what's happening outside or what people say.
That's the kind of inner peace we all want, right?
For sure. And then solitude takes it even further. Our bodies need rest. Our spirits need solitude to reconnect with ourselves.
He talks about St. Paul, Buddha, Lao Tse, Jesus, all finding their path in solitude.
And today, think of writers, artists, people with big ideas. They often need that isolation for breakthroughs.
It's like that space away from the noise lets you tap into something deeper.
Not just being alone, but using that time to listen to your inner voice, your wisdom.
That's it. And in our world, making time for that, it's more important than ever. For peace, clarity, connecting with that inner wisdom.
This is so relevant for anyone on that learning journey. Sometimes it's not about more information, but having that quiet to reflect.
And this inner wisdom, it's key for the next part of what Alan's getting at, where he ties everything together, the principles that shape how we experience life itself.
Okay, I'm ready to see how this all comes together. Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into byways to blessedness. We've been on this journey with James Allen, right beginnings, finding joy in the everyday, even facing those tough times head on, dropping those burdens. But the big question is, how does this all lead to that happy ending he's always talking about?
That's where understanding the simple laws of life comes in. This is where he ties everything together. It's like he reveals the code, the principles behind everything we experience.
The code, huh? All right, lay it on me. What are these simple laws he's talking about?
He starts off saying all of life is governed by law, the material world, and the spiritual world. Like there's not one set of rules for stuff out there and a different set for our minds. It's the same law all the way through.
So gravity, physics, those apply to thoughts and feelings too.
Exactly. And to show this, he uses this really cool analogy, the spiritual marketplace.
Okay, now you've got me curious. What is this marketplace? How does it work?
Think of it like a place where you're trading. But what you're trading are your inner qualities, your thoughts, your actions. And what you're getting in return are things like peace, joy, wisdom, the stuff that leads to lasting happiness.
So it's not about wishing for good luck or praying for stuff to happen.
Nope. It's about taking action, making choices that line up with what you want to grow in your life. Like planting seeds, right? Plant kindness, compassion, you reap peace and joy. Plant greed and anger, well, you get what you plant.
Makes sense. But what's the currency in this marketplace? What are we trading to get those good qualities?
Alan says the currency is our own selfishness. We trade in our bad habits, our negative thoughts, all those self-centered desires to get the things that bring real happiness.
So step one, recognize what's holding us back, then swap it out for something better. Easier said than done, though, right? I mean, what about all the stuff that happens that we can't control?
He knows there are things outside our control, for sure. But our power lies in how we react to those things. He says no situation is difficult on its own. It's our lack of understanding, our lack of wisdom in dealing with it that creates the difficulty.
So same challenge, different people, some thrive, some fall apart. It's all in the approach.
Totally. Goes back to that seed analogy. We can choose to plant fear, worry, or we can plant courage, resilience, hope. Those seeds are going to grow into our reality.
We're not powerless. Our choices shape the course of things.
And that leads us to happy endings, the last chapter. Alan flips the script on what a happy ending even means. It's not some far-off destination. It's what happens naturally when you live right, when you follow those simple laws.
So not about reaching some finish line, but finding joy in each step along the way.
Exactly. He says all that material stuff, achievements, they fade. But inner qualities, wisdom, compassion, integrity, those are the treasures that stay with you.
Like building your house on a solid foundation, right? Inner peace, virtue, that's what lets you weather any storm.
Beautiful way to put it. And as we wrap up this deep dive, what strikes me is how timeless all this is. Alan was writing over 100 years ago, but his insights about us humans, what makes us happy, it's all still relevant today.
Right beginnings. Finding joy in the ordinary, overcoming challenges, letting go of burdens, making time for silence and reflection. These are practices that can change anyone's life, no matter who you are or what you're going through.
It's a path to blessedness, not some far-off dream, but something we can find right now.
Powerful stuff. James Allen reminds us we create our own happy endings, not by chasing stuff, but by building those qualities that bring true and lasting joy. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into byways to blessedness. Hope you got something out of it.